Shades Anachronistos Warhammer Fantasy Lore. The Lord Sigmar sends me visions of hell. I see gigantic treadmills eternally turning in the dark. I see uncomfortable masses of swarming vermin standing on their hind legs in a foul parody of man. I see diabolic machines made by deranged mutants. I see bloated queens with atrophied limbs breeding their rotten offspring. All this I see, and in my head the dreadful tolling of the cursed bell still screams. It won't stop! The multitude of red eyes stare at us from the darkness of sewers and graves. They loathe us, and they will rise to devour us. All for our sins. Make it stop. Please make it stop.
Here I am, in the corner, not afraid or anything, but I, a great wizard of Altdorf, cannot be expected to go wandering into sewers, looking for little rat monsters, far below my needs. I need to find myself a warrior, a great or maybe even stupid warrior. Where is that Shades Anachronisto?
Yes, it is I, Shades. This is what I look like when dressed for battle. I know it's a little bit weird that my battle clothing doesn't really involve any clothing as such, but I promise you that underneath my t-shirt, this is exactly what my body looks like. Anyway, now, on to business. I have been sent on a most important mission by a great wizard of Altdorf, and might I say, a very finely painted wizard of Altdorf. I must delve deep into the Skaven territory and learn all I can about their society, then make it out alive. Easy for a soldier of Sigmar like me. Huzzah! Hi there, I'm terribly sorry that the video's taking so long. However, I've had a bit of a run-in with the horned rat and only just escaped the realm of chaos. As you can see, he got the better of me for a bit, but I managed to get out of there. So, hopefully, video will be done very soon, but the horned rat has delayed me for the time being. Terribly sorry about that. See you soon. Bye. By the way, forgetting the video for a second, this is not makeup. I was beaten up by such a disgusting wretch of a man that to call him a Skaven is actually quite fitting in my opinion. But anyway, back to the video. I'm out. I'm out. I can breathe the free air again. Thank you. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. I'm just gonna have a little sleep. Good night. Okay, so this first question, which was asked by Lord Caedus, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, it was a real doozy of a question, and despite that, however, I think it was just the kind of question, the kind of tough question that I really needed to get back in the game with making videos again. Now, it sounds so simple on the surface. The question was,
Describe a Skaven society. Right? Sounds simple enough. However, that kind of question really takes its own video to be described properly. And I think as the video progresses, you will understand why. So, let's begin. I thought we'd begin with, the most simple place possible. Let's begin by defining what it is, what a society actually is. Now, I've decided to use the Cambridge Dictionary definition, and that is because I am sick of hearing about the Oxford English Dictionary. Where's the Cambridge English Dictionary? It's just as dictionary-ish as the Oxford one, I'll have you know. So I went to the Cambridge Dictionary, and this is how the Cambridge Dictionary defines what it is that makes up a society.
A large group of people who live together in an organised way, making decisions about how to do things and sharing the work that needs to be done.
So, in answer to your question, there's actually no such thing as a Skaven society. So, I suppose that wraps things up, really. Nice easy one. I hope that satisfies your curiosity. This is Shades, and he is, of course, not signing off. Because the idea that the Skaven have something that is so unlike a regular society that we understand is what makes things so much more interesting, because a conventional society is bleh. It's just bleh. Bleh. Yeah, who cares, we all get a democracy, it's so good. Yeah, it's bleh. Anyway, I think you get the point. Bleh. Let's instead check out a fragile framework of cooperation that is so fragile and so chaotic that it is sitting on a knife's edge and could fall apart at any moment, and yet each aspect of the framework needs each other so desperately, despite hating each other, that they have existed in this way for thousands of years. I want to discuss something more like that. Sounds far more interesting than a bleh ordinary society. And I hope you'll agree.
If we play fast and loose with the concept, we could in fact say that the Skaven do have something of the sort. It's just that it is far more chaotic than any other in the entire Warhammer world. There are three things that force the Skaven to work together overall. The first is simply fear, and there ain't anything new about that one within our own world. The second is addiction. Much like Soma in the book Brave New World, the Skaven have an addiction to a substance called warpstone. This helps keep them in line, and we shall be exploring this substance in far more depth very soon. The third aspect to this society is the innate nature of the Skaven themselves, without which all of this would fall apart. If this is a little confusing, don't worry, bear with me as we shall now break things down.
I'm going to start with the last piece of the puzzle. What would you say is a Skaven's worst enemy? What puts your typical Skaven warrior in the most danger? It ain't Nagash and his endless hordes of zombie warriors. It ain't those pesky longbeards, all huddled up ready for battle in their mountain fortresses. Nope. I suspect, to those who know the Skaven well, they've probably already guessed the answer. The most dangerous thing to a typical Skaven warrior is in fact another Skaven warrior. And basically they are famous for their backstabbing ways, meaning that the more sneaky, the more cutthroat, the more malicious and troublesome, the more, rat-like a Skaven is, the more chance it actually has of moving up the ladder of Skaven society. And so in this way, they can move from cannon fodder to general. Now, at first, this may seem really the total opposite of what a society is all about. Community working together to create wonders and, a better life for everyone involved. Without balance, instead of a society, you have pure chaos. However, thinking about this a little bit harder, and you come up with some different conclusions. Balance is achieved, and it's achieved in a very interesting way. You see, the more powerful that a Skaven becomes through the methods I've previously mentioned, the more attention they then draw to themselves. And so the more of a target they become to another ambitious Skaven trying to work his way up the ladder. So you can see, as I said, that what's created is a very chaotic type of balance. It's achieved through this way of trying to build up power, however also creating more and more of a risk of losing that power, and with Skaven often that means the life. So there is a downside to this system of balance, and that is that it has naturally a very high attrition rate, as you can imagine. But again, this is where the Skaven's nature comes into play, and where they their life, the way in which they happen to experience their life helps them through this challenge. They don't have as long a life as humans anyway. However, they have an extremely high attrition rate, but they also have an extremely high birth rate, because their rattiness is what saves the day. There are rat mothers that are giving birth to thousands of Skaven constantly, 24/7, more and more Skaven are being pushed into the system. And so while the system that I've been talking about means that many Skaven are often killed, there is also a huge pool of Skaven to replenish those that have been lost. And that, in fact, means that if it wasn't for this sort of deadly game of snakes and ladders, which I think describes this system quite well, if it wasn't for this game of snakes and ladders, their extremely high birth rate would probably mean that the entire world would be infested with Skaven. They would swarm over the world like a tidal wave. Balance is in a way achieved through backstabbing. Okay, so on to our second aspect of Skaven society. And as I said, we were going to go in reverse order. So now we're going to be talking about addiction, and addiction to a particularly interesting substance. Now that substance is warpstone. And before I go into depth about what warpstone actually is, I think, why don't we hear from the Skaven themselves?
Most precious of all substances, the pulse of our life. If the horned rat is our father, then surely warpstone is our mother. Its uses are infinite, like the heart of an endless fire. It is even the smallest of pieces will continue to give power indefinitely, allowing many of our devices to become somewhat portable. Warpstone fire can not only consume a substance, but actually change its structure to far more than just burned due to exposure to its holy flames. Weapons made from warpstone produce their own poison. A warpstone charm brings real luck, changing what was to be to what might have been, with none the wiser. So where does it come from? Where? There are those among the more superstitious of our folk, and a few foolish graces that believe warpstone is the leavings of the horned rat. I subscribe to the secular view that it is chunks of the dark moon morsket which has managed to gift us with pieces of its essence. Dangerous it is, yes, how dangerous. Dangerous to the touch, warpstone is often, but that's what slaves are for, yes, yes.
If I try to describe warpstone in all its complexity, this video really will never get done. So I think first a quick general description is in order, but mainly followed by how this substance relates to the Skaven. In a paragraph, warpstone is pure chaos energy that has solidified into a rock formation. It looks rather beautiful, like a sparkling ruby. However, it is extremely dangerous, particularly, of course, to the forces of order. Although, it has to be said, weird stone sticks, which are a weak, smokable form of warpstone, are smuggled in on the black market for the euphoric and addictive effects that they produce. This is one way that the good can be turned to the path of chaos, but I think we'll save that story for another day. To those who have given themselves over to chaos completely, Warpstone has many more uses and is very rare and valuable, and also far more potent strains are always being sought out. So it is incredibly useful to those of a chaotic nature, shall we say, but it also still has all the dangers. But alas to the Skaven, for them it is perhaps most important out of all the races to their way of life. 1, being the source of their magics. 2, powering their machinery, particularly those of war. And 3, mutating their battle monsters, I suppose you could call them, and battle mounts as well. 4 is probably most important, and the primary reason is that it is refined into warp tokens and used as the currency. But skipping over the currency aspect, as that sort of answers itself, I personally just imagine a big bag of glowing green coins instead of gold. Let's take the other 3 uses one at a time. But alas to the Skaven, for them it is perhaps most important out of all the races to their way of life. 1, being the source of their magics. 2, powering their machinery, particularly those of war. And 3, mutating their battle monsters, I suppose you could call them, and battle mounts as well. 4 is probably most important, and the primary reason is that it is refined into warp tokens and used as the currency. But skipping over the currency aspect, as that sort of answers itself, I personally just imagine a big bag of glowing green coins instead of gold. Let's take the other 3 uses one at a time. So let's start with the Skaven mages, the Greyseers. They tend to consume Warpstone in nugget form that they use for emergency, as the direct consumption of Warpstone can turn the most cowardly of Greyseers into a magical powerhouse, greatly increasing the power of their spells, and perhaps just as importantly, their confidence. Though, take too much, and this use can be very risky, with Skaven being known to blow up. Also, due to regular consumption, the Greyseers are probably the most addictive of all Skaven to Warpstone, and so they tend to take it purely for pleasure as much as for power. As an example of this strange use, here follows an excerpt from the Black Library novel Temple of the Serpent God. Temple of the Serpent God. Woo! A Thanquol and Bone Ripper novel. I think it's the second one in the series. Greyseer Thanquol, as many probably know, is probably the most famous Skaven in all of Warhammer literature. He's a bumbling Greyseer who just can't seem to get anything right, and he provides lots of comedic value, and I thoroughly recommend his novels. But anyway, I thought, sorry, let me just get comfortable here, if I'm going to be doing some reading for you. I thought I'd found a paragraph here that sort of, it basically encapsulates what I was
talking about in terms of Skaven magic and Warpstone. It talks about the power that Warpstone can deliver to a mage. It talks about the chaos behind that power. It talks about the addictive qualities of that power. And it talks about how things can sometimes not quite go according to plan. So, here we go, as follows. Thankwall and Bone Ripper, Temple of the Serpent by C.L. Werner. Seeing 20 tons of reptilian death barrelling down at him made Thankwall remember the nugget of warpstone he'd popped into his mouth. Fat frog things were forgotten as he bit down on the rock. Problem A, it brings delusions. Fat frog things are Slan, which are probably the most powerful mages in the whole of Warhammer. Just a slight mention there. But anyway, we'll call them fat frog things were forgotten as he bit down on the rock, grinding it into powder with his fangs. Frantically, Thankwall swallowed each portion as it slid onto his tongue. Invigorating power swelled within him, quickening his pulse, making his limbs feel as though steel has been poured onto his bones. Thankwall straightened out of his cringing posture, glaring defiance at the onrushing Saurus chief. What was such a crude creature beside the godlike power that now coursed through his veins? Nothing! Less than nothing! With a single flick of his claw, he would hurl the lizard man and its slavering mount across the jungle and back to Quetzal. He'd smash their scaly carcasses into paste, and then grind that paste into powder so fine even an ant couldn't make a meal of it. Then he'd find that impertinent frog thing, Slan Mage Priest, and pop every wart on his slimy body before burning out his eyes, and intoxicating visions of what he would do to his enemies with the power searing through his body almost made Thankwall forget about the reptiles thundering down the trail towards him. Something like panic made him flinch when he realised they were only a few dozen yards away. Problem 2 of Warpstone, addictive qualities and invigorating sense of ego. A bit like crack, really, eh? Thundering down the trail towards him, something like panic made him flinch when he realised they were only a few dozen yards away. Then he remembered who he was and the powers at his command. Calmly, Greyseer Thankwall pointed his staff at the Carnosaur and its rider. A few sharp curses, a few focused thoughts, and he sent a storm of warp lightning crashing into the reptiles. He grinned in savage triumph. Then his eyes widened in appreciative horror as he saw the warp lightning being funneled into the golden amulets riveted into the Saurus chief's scales. Beast and Master came roaring through the flood of magical onslaught as unfazed as a fish in a flood. Whining in sheer terror, Thankwall dived back into the thicket. There are many dangers associated with Warpstone. One of the main ones that those who deal with this substance greatly fear is that of mutation. That being said, there is a particular clan that's power derives from the use of this particular hazard. That is the powerful Skaven clan, Clan Moulder. Now, I know I've started talking about clans now. I will go into detail on the clans that Skaven are divided into very soon. But for now, all we need to know is that there is a clan called Clan Moulder. It's a very powerful clan in Skaven society, and its use of Warpstone is for its mutating effects. Now, why is this clan so powerful? And why am I talking about them now? That is because Clan Moulder use Warpstone amongst other techniques, in order to create, for its mutating effects, in order to create incredibly powerful and grotesque monsters, basically, to be used as either just weapons of war or as personal bodyguards for particularly influential Skaven. And this, of course, comes at a price. This means that they not only use the warp stone in order to mutate these monsters, but they also have amassed a great deal of wealth in warp tokens. So they're an incredibly wealthy clan and an incredibly powerful clan, all through warp stone. One example of the kind of mutated beasts that they create are the rat ogres. And having just talked about Graysir Thanquol, it's only fair to talk about the other member of this chaotic pair and very famous pair, and that is Bone Ripper. Because Bone Ripper just happens to be a rat ogre. Ain't that convenient?
I found another passage from the same good old Black Library novel that I think once again encapsulates what I've been talking about when it comes to Bone Ripper and rat ogres. I have my beautiful cat Weiss with me for this particular reading. I can't kick her out of the way, she's far too cute. Aren't you, Weiss? Yes, you are. Hello. Right. Okay. Here we go. Bone Ripper, Thanquol shouted. He pointed a claw at the jungle into which the assassin had fled. That rat ogre stalked towards the trees, absently tossing aside the last shreds of what had been Concrackback. Fetch the traitor meat. Bone Ripper growled in an inarticulate acknowledgement and began to smash his way through the small trees that barred his path. Thanquol grinned as he watched the monster make short work of the trees. Without his weeping blade, Shang Fang... Oh, Beerus has come to join us as well. I have cats everywhere. Hello me. Shang Fang was as good as dead. Bye-bye, Beerus. God, these cats. You've got to love them. Shang Fang was as good as dead when Bone Ripper caught up with him, and the rat ogre would. The Skaven hadn't been weaned who could match the endurance of Clan Moulder's creations. You see, reference to Clan Moulder. The grin faded on Thanquol's face as a troubling thought came to him. He'd used a spell just a moment ago. His glands clenched as he considered what he had done. Bone Ripper, you stupid idiot. Thanquol raged, rushing up to the rat ogre and smacking him with his staff. You're supposed to protect me. The rat ogre blinked at him in confusion, then hung his head in guilt and moved away from the trees. Is that a good Weiss? Who's a good kitty, kitty, witty, witty? Who's a good kitty? Who can't love Beerus and Weiss? I had to include them in the video. I couldn't not, could I? What do you say about that, Beerus? Hello, Beerus. Who's your good kid, Beerus? Hello, Weiss. Did you enjoy hearing about the Skaven? You both just want food, don't you? Bye-bye.
So sorry. Slight interruption. I've just been out shooting Skaven all day, trying to get into my green room. In case you haven't guessed, I am using a green room for the first time. I think it's quite obvious. But the reason I've had to be shooting them is that I forgot to mention Skaven are actually kept a secret to the main populace of humans on the old world. This works in two favours. The Skaven keep it a secret. It helps them in their diabolical plans. And also, for the humans, it means that there's no panic. Because imagine how you'd feel if you knew there was a horrible Skaven empire underneath your very city. So it appears to be somehow the worst kept secret in the Warhammer world. And they want to keep it that way. So just been having to, shoot the old Skaven down. But anyway, back to our story. Now, with Bone Ripper, it is a little bit of a different story. You see, there have actually been many a Bone Ripper in Black Library literature. It's kind of almost become a bit of a joke, really, how many Bone Rippers there have been. Basically, Thanquol, this totally incompetent Greyseer, who somehow still survives, had a bodyguard, and he was somehow given it, I suppose, because he's a Greyseer, and he decided to call his bodyguard, which was a rat ogre, Bone Ripper. In practically every single Thanquol and Bone Ripper novel, Bone Ripper gets wiped out, and yet Thanquol somehow seems to get another one in every next novel, and he calls this new bodyguard, maybe after his first bodyguard, maybe he misses him. I can't see that being the case, them being Skaven and not really caring, but it's become a tradition for him to call each of his bodyguards in each book Bone Ripper. So there have actually been many a Bone Ripper in Black Library history, and I'm sure there will be many more. One question that you might ask is, why would this huge, powerful monster protect its master to the death? Well, Clan Moulder actually programs each rat ogre bodyguard to obey its master, even till the bitter end. This is usually successful, and I'm afraid the emphasis is on the word usually.
Ending our journey through the main uses of Warpstone and how it permeates through society, holding it together like some sparkling, squidgy, bright green glue that's always kind of coming apart at the seams. We are going to look at another of the major Skaven clans that I mentioned we are going to be talking about and checking out in a minute. That clan is considered to probably be the most powerful of all the clans, and they are called Clan Skyer. This is what my mate Stephen, a scholar of Wolfenburg, wrote to me about Clan Skyer. He is, after all, a prominent expert on these matters. Yes. Skyer's most powerful engineers meld sorcery and science until the two are indivisible. These individuals are called warlock engineers, and they are more akin to walking arsenals than to Skaven. Warp energy crackles from the blades that emerge from the flesh of their arms, and their rat-like bodies are covered in all manner of bizarre tubes. Whatever the truth of the canon, it is clear that Skaven weapon technology is far, far beyond that of the Empire, and even beyond that of the dwarves. The sole mercy is that the terrifying weapons are extremely unreliable, and often do more damage to the ratmen than to their enemies.
So, All the great war machines rely on a heavy supply of warpstone. Now, I could go on to other uses, but I think we can see the how this stuff is just everywhere. And also, I'm getting really tired of saying the word warpstone. And so, if all the Skaven need this stuff, it's definitely crucial in keeping them together. Now, well, some of you might be thinking that these crazy Skaven would just fight each other to the death over it instead. And I can see why you might think that. But perhaps I can help change that view with the final reason the Skaven keep to a society. I've touched on aspects just earlier with the mention of clans, so let's talk about the makeup of Skaven society, from the greatest Skaven of them all to the lowliest slave. The Skaven do have a very interesting structure. I've mentioned two very powerful clans already. Clan Moulder, who breed these scary monsters, and Clan Skyer, who build the big scary machines. I've also talked about the Graces, who, while not being tied to a specific clan, well, we'll see about that, but supposedly treat amongst all of the others as the spiritual guidance, which really means that they basically do what they can to get the clans to serve their needs. So all Skavendom is divided into many, many different types of clans. Most hold little power, yet fight naturally for more. But the most powerful clans, such as Moulder and Skyer, amongst others that we'll talk about, have leaders. And these leaders sit on a council, creating an oligarchy of sorts, where each leader can vote on an issue, and yet be vetoed by other leaders. This has so far stopped the Skaven from wiping each other out, so I think we should go right to the very, very top and talk about the most powerful of all the Skaven in Skavendom and their council. Let's talk about the mysterious Council of 13. Ooh.
They claim to be serving the will of the Horned Rat. They spend most of their time serving themselves. The Council of 13 is made up of the 12 greatest Skaven in the whole Under Empire. Now, the reason it's the Council of 13 and not 12 is that ceremonially the 13th seat is said to be claimed by the Skaven god, the Horned Rat himself. The rest are known as the Lords of Decay. Let's check them out. Each seat on the council has a symbolic role in terms of power. The 1st and 12th seat are claimed by the most powerful Skaven, and then the power descends the closer you get to the middle. So seats 6 and 7 are for the least powerful lords. Remember, each lord, however, is extremely powerful. Each of the Skaven have a vote when it comes to politics. It has lasted a long time, so I suppose it somehow works to keep things in check. But really, it means much plotting between each lord in a deadly game of chess to try and outwit each other and claim more power for themselves and their own interests. Let's have a closer look at each Lord of Decay. We have Lord Verminkin, who is leader of our lovely clan Moulder. Next is Night Lord Sneak, ruler of Clan Eshin. We haven't heard of that clan yet, so a quick description is in order. Now, Clan Eshin are a clan of assassins, with Sneak being an assassin of incredible skill. The best assassins in the clan will cut your throat before you even know they were there. They are therefore very useful to the other Skaven clans who hire them out, for a pretty price, to use both outside and inside Skavendom. Their main goal, naturally, is to serve their own ends. So, what else really do we expect now? Following Sneak is another clan leader we have already come across, Lord Morskitar, who rules Clan Skyer and their deadly machines. The next lord, Arch-Plague Lord Nurglic, who rules a clan known as Clan Pestilence. Now, they are an interesting clan. I could do a video on them themselves, but let's just cover the basics. As the name suggests, Clan Pestilence specialise in creating all different foul diseases to unleash upon their enemies. Their members, the Plague Monks, seem to have been in contact with these diseases for so long that they are immune, but all other Skaven give them a wide berth, a very wise idea. None but maybe the followers of the Plague God Nurgle are immune to their brews. For the rest of the world, it's a lingering, painful death. They have a great backstory, but perhaps that's best saved for another day. Next up, we have Clan Moors and its mighty leader, Warlord Nordwell. This clan is famous for its use of many poisons, but it mainly stands out for a much more strange reason. And that is a word you would never expect a Skaven to say. Loyalty. The Skaven of Clan Moors are fiercely loyal to one another and to their mighty leader. No stabbing in the back. If you are in the clan, you could almost be called safe to one another. It's enough to make a Skaven sick. Warlord Cratch Doomclaw, that's our next Skaven, and he leads Clan Rictus. Clan Rictus plays the role probably most familiar to our own history. They rule over the slave trade with an iron fist. Due to the immense amount of slaves within the Under Empire, they are a very wealthy clan indeed. They also provide the greatest Skaven warriors, far superior to your average Skaven, the elite Storm Vermin, the most martial Skaven feared by all their enemies. They don't run away when the going gets tough like most other Skaven, therefore the warlord sitting at the top of the top could be the greatest warrior in all of Skavendom. Sitting next to Gnordwell, we have an incredibly obese Skaven named Parskit the Vast. I'm afraid I can tell you no more about this one. Apart from his size, nothing is known about he or his clan. Oh well. At least we know the name of our next lord, Fleet Master Vrisk Ironscratch. God, these Skaven have weird names. Now, Skaven, like rats, tend not to take well to water. But, as the name suggests, the Lord of Clan Scurvy controls the Skaven fleet. Although, in reality, a bunch of cutthroat pirates is a better description. It's the best the Skaven can do for fighting on the high seas. Our ninth Skaven is Warlord Grisnecked Mancarver, ruler of Clan Scab. Clan Scab are also best known for having the greatest amount of storm vermin and just naturally, arguably, generally the finest warriors in all of the Under Empire. Leased out to many of the other clans to bolster their ranks for a pretty warpstone or two, naturally, they are another rather wealthy clan. And finally, we have most probably the most influential Skaven of them all, Grand Seer Lord Kritzlik, both head of our now familiar Grey Seers and secretly head of a clan called Clan Scruton. Some say the purpose of this clan is so the Seer Lord can have his own personal army, as well as being the most powerful mage in all of Skavendom. His job is also to interpret the will of the Horned Rat, who sits on his own chair, the 13th chair of the council. This means he has normally a more earthly role, in that it means he has in essence 2 votes when the council votes, meaning he often gets his way in all things ratty. Now, I realise that we only have 10 Skaven at this point, and including the Horned Rat, that's 11, so we are missing 2 Lords of Decay from the Council of 13. I'm afraid nobody in the old world knows a thing about the other 2 lords. I think it's nice to have some mystery in the world. And there we have it. I realise it's been a chaotic journey, but that's the Skaven for you. What I have discovered for you is, in my belief, what holds these rat men together and has somehow kept Skaven society together for many thousands of years. Well, this is Shades signing off. Most questions coming up can be fairly quickly answered, but this one was definitely a biggie. Still, it gave me the chance to start using some new effects for the first time and was really fun to make, despite taking so long. I hope you have enjoyed the journey into the depths with me. Please like, comment and subscribe. I would like to thank Lord Caedus for his excellent question, and I will be seeing you all very soon. Toodles!